Welcome to Insight Talks, brought to you by Outlook in association with Johnson Tiles. This is a conversation series with architects and designers. It's not typically about their landmark projects or awards they won. It's about them as a person, as a creator, a master, and a learner. The interviews are taken by filmmaker Aradhana Seth in very informal and free-flowing style. And let me tell you, every conversation has very interesting and inspiring stories. Hello and namaste. I am Dinesh Vyas and I welcome you to the Insight Talks brought to you by Outlook in association with Prism Johnson. In this episode, Aradhana Seth is in conversation with Delhi-based well-known architect Sheetal Rakheja. She is a graduate of Sushant School of Arts and Architecture and an accredited lead green building professional. Sheetal is recognized for her landmark campuses which have focus on environment sensitivity and energy conservation along with aesthetics and functionality. Architect Sheetal is a firm believer in the sustainable architecture, and in this conversation she has covered multiple aspects of responsible architecture. Let us join her at Insight Talks.
So Sheetal, what inspired you to become an architect?
What inspired me, many things. One is nature. I'm really inspired by nature, and I felt that the textures, the patterns, and the way nature builds, it's self-sustaining. So that really inspired me. Second thing were 2-3 incidences where I remember my mom being a little unwell when I was quite young, and doctor advised that why don't you take her to a hill station. So when we went there, and I think within 2 weeks we stayed there, and there was a very fast recovery, which was taking long being there. Third was my one of my close friends, So we used to go and study in her. She had a very cozy, small place at the terrace full of landscaping and greenery. And we used to study there, outdoors, sometimes indoors. And that really helped, whatever we read or studied, it helped to retain. So I always felt that, the architecture, the blend of architecture and nature played a very important role. And architecture can actually help the spatial organization and the connect with nature can really help to create spaces which have the power to change how we feel, our emotions, how we think, and help improve not only our productivity but help to heal, to rejuvenate. So that was a big inspiration for me, and since then whatever we've designed, I've designed, it's always taking nature in. I mean, bringing us closer to nature by bringing the nature closer to us. So all the buildings that I've designed, I've always had nature well integrated with it.
Can you give us some examples of buildings you've designed?
So one of the projects we did in 2005 was IHTB, which is in Noida, and it's designed around series of courtyards. So all these, because like courtyard plays a very important role in our kind of climate, it is a multifunctional device. Like not only it helps to get natural light in, it helps to filter the natural light, helps to cool the wind before it comes in. It also helps to shade. When you design around a courtyard, you shade the building from each other. So we did this project where every courtyard was treated differently. And we took care of the window wall ratio. We ensured that there was natural light which was diffused, which was coming in. So it became an interesting project where it was really appreciated by one and all. Then there's another project we did which was Green Boulevard. At that time, in 2008, so what we did was that we stilted the complete ground floor and we created a public space. It was basically a commercial building and office building, where the offices we started from the second floor and above and made this entire thing as a social campus. When you talk about sustainability, it's balancing the ecological factors, balancing the environmental factors with the social well-being and the occupant comfort. So this entire social space was created such that not only it helped to shade these spaces, the building shaded the spaces, there was a wind flow, and the building was oriented such that it could capture that wind flow, and then there was all nature and greenery around that the ground level. So so this project actually was where we could bring down the energy consumption from normally offices, it's about 150 square feet, you do 1 ton of air conditioning. Here, almost 800 square feet area we were air conditioning by just 1 ton of air conditioning. In addition, there were these lovely social spaces which people liked. So in the peak of reception, when other buildings were not easily leased out, this building completely got leased out because one and all, the tenants, when they came in, they appreciated this space. In fact, National Geographic did an interview of the people, of the occupants, and they said that, many of them said that they really feel happy being here because there's water there are birds chirping, there's a place where, people play guitar. So it's like a beautiful social community which has got formed in. And they say that they come to office half an hour earlier and they leave an hour later because they love being there. It helps to actually soothe and uplift their spirit. It helps to get them out of the stress of everyday stress. So these were 2 buildings which we did, and then going forward we also designed a house which is made completely out of waste around a courtyard, but waste containers we used, and this was called Shunya. Now Shunya means zero, and India gave Shunya to the world centuries back.
Yes.
And now it's time to say that how we can actually live as a common man very sustainably. That was the house all about. It was about zero water, zero waste and zero energy. So this house took no electricity from the grid. It ran on its own. So first we really reduced the energy consumption of this project. And then whatever little energy it did need was through the solar panels, which was again a renewable energy. So Shunya was made for an exhibition. It was made for an X-ray exhibition, and it was put up at Pragati Maidan. And then we moved that house. It was like made out of containers which were joined together. It was moved to Noida itself, and we ran it for almost a year to see that, is it actually performing how it's supposed to perform, and actually giving the results of being Shunya, which is zero energy, mainly producing as much energy as it needs over a course of a year. And it did perform very well. But then we carried forward that concept into a lot of clubs, and we're doing some office buildings, which are zero energy office buildings. So one is coming up in Kolkata and one is here in Greater Noida itself.
And how do you marry and plan for making a green, sustainable building, and how do you marry technology into that mix?
When we talk about sustainability, the key is to balance and integrate the environment consciousness with the occupant well-being and the comfort of people, because finally you're making buildings for the people and they have to be comfortable. Now when we talk about energy, resource efficiency, we have to cut down on our energy consumption, like make these buildings high energy performance. And for doing that, what we do is we do a digital twinning of those buildings through computer simulation models. We create a building on computer, model that building, and then we see that, in terms of the orientation of the building, what is the impact, and if we change the orientation, or how we orient the windows or even the building, how it helps to save the energy. So if I'll go back to the Shunya I was talking about, we first digitally twinned that building into a computer simulation model, and then we rotated it and saw that what was the best orientation that would help to reduce the heat of the sun which was coming in, right? Then what we did was we experimented that what should be the specifications of the glass. Like these days there are glasses which are available which really help to cut down the heat, but at the same time you get a lot of visual light transmission. Like you need light to come in, but you want to cut off the glare. And then you do shading devices. Like if let's say your building north side doesn't get you much glare, especially in our North India. But if you go to southern India, the sun is more higher. So even on the north side, you need to do shading devices which will cut off that. So what we do is through these simulation models, we see, what is the depth of the shading system you need to cut off that glare which is coming in. Next, we see that, if you put insulation around the building or you put insulation on the roof. So through that model, we can see, okay, if you put 4 inches of insulation, what is the impact? How much energy are you saving? If you do 6 inches, so that model will give you all those results. And then you can decide, because these projects were where we used this a lot, because there was a budget constraint also. Like the Green Boulevard project, there was a big budget constraint where we had to do the building in an X amount. Now, either we could, in the end, we were trying to debate if we put insulation on all sides, what is the energy saving versus giving solar panels. So you then debate it out, and that helps. So you marry the technology and architecture that way. So there are many things which you can do passively, like just orienting the building right. You can save so much of energy. Just taking care of the window wall ratio, you can actually save energy. And many times courtyards play a very important role, because they help to shade the walls. They help to, so all this you can, on day one, you are able to predict through this technology that what will be the exact consumption of your building. So for example, the projects where we did it shows that our EPI, or the energy performance index, would be that, and in actual it was performing equivalent or even better in reality. So that's how we do. And then these projects, what we also did was, so one was the passive technologies where architecture plays a very important role. Your wind directions, your solar directions. Like we stilted the building in Green Boulevard, which helped to, and then we had water bodies in the right direction, which cooled the wind before it came in. So people, because we were giving these social spaces, but what's important is people will use these social spaces only when it's cool, it's shaded, right? Because if you, so we study the wind direction. So that technology helps us to actually, while it's possible to do manually, earlier architects used to do it manually, but now it's a faster output. You can actually do these analysis, which is much faster to do it, and much better and even more accurate to do it, through these simulation models.
Do you think that the acceptance of green building practice has changed over the years?
Yes, definitely. There's a big sea change. Earlier there was a lot of convincing required to the client, because I think the mindset was that one, it costs more. And secondly, it was a new concept. Will it work? Will it not work? If you're going to use certain materials, is it going to be an issue? So there was a lot of convincing which was required. But then I think now, especially with countries and India committing to the UN climate change, where we've committed that we have to go carbon zero emission by 2070, and at least reduce by 1 billion ton the carbon outtake by 2030. That has really that's also added, but other than that, I'm also the chairperson of the Indian Green Building Council Delhi chapter, associated with IGBC since its inception, and so we've been trying to promote the green building, trying to we've always reached out to students, to clients, to people. We organize conferences to kind of to make them understand the importance of going green, because sustainability has to be a way of life. Also, government has given some incentive. If you go green, you get that extra FSI. COVID has taught people a lot of things. They've understood that how important health is, how important taking care of, you should have good environment quality, you should have good air quality, and energy. I mean, that also is a segment which is, people really face the harsh reality in the last 2 years, and that has also changed. So now, in fact, recently, whatever projects are coming to us, people are focusing and would want, even if it's a small apartment or a house, they are concerned that what kind of glass is being used. Are we, how can we go green? What kind of materials? Because their materials, they understand that there's certain materials which are carcinogenic. So what kind of, they need that advice, that what kind of materials you want to use, what kind of paints, what kind of, how can I get more natural light, how can I connect to nature? Because they feel that being in the house in the lockdown, yes, you wanted to connect to nature and you had no choice. So they realized that there's a lot of focus suddenly come on the residential segment, where people are wanting to invest in the houses. So And likewise, even in the commercial spaces and other projects, there's a lot of focus now going to green. And then the third part is the ESG, which is the environment, social governance, where SEBI has come up with that. And a lot of companies are to adhere to those norms. So there's a big paradigm shift which is happening towards green and sustainable buildings, and all these are definitely the contributing factors. I think India is one of the largest footprint in green development. We have almost 8 billions of square feet, which is registered with IGBC, and about more than 7,000 projects which are which have committed to go green, and we're looking for more in the coming years.
So do you have a LEED qualification?
Yes, so I am an IGBC accredited professional, and also LEED AP professional, and so are many people in my team. But when we design, we ensure that it's a more modular, like we do room sizes, and also there are wastages of all materials, whether it's tile, whether it's glass. When we do the facade, we ensure, they spend time to see that the wastages are down to the bare minimum. So it's all of us push that whole concept together.
And what advice would you give to young architects today?
I think this field in today's time is the field to be, because architects have a very big role. India, especially the development, we are a developing country, and there are millions of square feet which needs to be built. And if it's built in the right way, we can actually help to in the whole endeavor to save the planet. We have a very big role to play. I think these, especially the young architects, and if you do anything with heart and passion, and with reverence to nature, I think we can just make it. I think there's a huge potential in this field right now, especially green architecture, ESG, and with all the countries looking at going carbon neutral, we'll have because the country's 40% energy is through the construction industry itself.
Absolutely.
And there's a huge development which is happening. So for these young architects, there's a lot of role they can play in the coming future. There's a lot of potential, there's a lot of things, but they have to work very judiciously with passion and taking care of the mother nature. That's important, and it's no rocket science. These are very basic principles. So I have a lot of these young architects working with me. Some of them, the team members, are much older, but then working for a long time. But they're quite passionate. These people are very keen to learn. All of them are very keen to learn. I think basic principle is that we need to balance. Sustainability is balancing the environment, social, and the economics. It's at all scales. And if we build these communities where we engage nature, where we bring back that nature, bring people closer to nature, that's how they'll respect it, and that they care for it. And we designed Shunya, and that was a way, that was an example of how we can all live so sustainably. It was zero water, zero waste, and zero energy. The food we were growing, we were using solar cookers to, actually, it's such a simple way of cooking. And then the manure was used in the same garden. So it's a closed loop recycling. You're not throwing away anything. You're reusing. Entire furniture for that house, everything was from the waste, basically. So you give back more to the planet than what you take from it. These are some simple things which I think if all of us start living that way, it will make a huge difference to the planet.
How do you do it other than incorporate the principles of Shunya into a super structure like this one that you've built?
So here also, if you see that, the building, what we do is that take care of the window wall ratio. Like in my house, I never have my lights on during the day. And every time, that's ingrained from my childhood. My father was very, very particular that you switch off the light the moment you do. In fact, we had a very nice veranda in front where we used to entertain our guests. Now, of course, it becomes a little unsafe. We used to sleep there in the evenings. We used to do our reading, we used to do our study, everything in that, like a nice veranda which was shaded, and it had, we had a small fountain there, so it was bringing fresh air. So he really used to enjoy that fresh air. All our windows used to, we had a lot of these jali windows where even when we were inside, the lights were never on, we never had AC, it was just fan. So in fact, my previous office which I had designed, and before we moved in here, So we never used to switch on lights. We had fans. We didn't have. We did have air conditioning, but that was run only twice. Only 2 months in a year, and that also at 27 degrees. And then we had this pre-cooling of fresh air, which we did, and we also, because Noida, you know what the pollution levels are.
Yes.
So we were all treating that before it came in. And then we had a small cafe, which was a multifunctional. So, making multifunctional use of a space, which we used to for meetings, which we use for all our, get-togethers, we use for lunch. So it was not free at all during the day. And again, it was made from, the stools were made from bicycle car waste tires and, waste things collected together. So many things can actually be ingrained, in our daily lives, and it's very much possible.
What do you think of ceramic as a material of use in interior and exterior spaces?
So you're talking about tiles and sanitary ware, and so we've been using tiles quite a bit, because one, though I love stones, I love the natural materials, but we understand that there are limited quarries, and with so much development it becomes difficult. So we have been using ceramic. One, it gives you a lot of choice to the younger designers, to all of us. Secondly, it's much easier to maintain, definitely. But I think what to the younger generation, I would say that what we normally do is we avoid the wastages. So when you design rooms, you design it in a way that they are so the sizes which are available in the market, whether it's 2 feet by 2 feet or whether it's going to be 4 feet by 4 feet. So you design the room so that your wastages, you don't have cut tiles. You would design your building, your spaces to avoid all those cut pieces and tiles. They're much easier to deal with, definitely. There's so much of variety, which is unbelievable. So many companies and so many varieties. So yeah, it's a good material, easily cleanable. So most spaces you can easily use it. It doesn't need maintenance.
And how do you choose between different ceramic companies?
So for us, while the governing factor, of course, one is the quality. The other is we definitely look at, what is the material being used, how is it being made, what temperatures. We generally do we do all that R&D before, actually, and then we shortlist the companies. But then obviously color, tone, material, the choice sometimes in a particular project, you want a particular kind of texture or a tile.
Or color palette.
So a lot of time for us, that becomes the governing factor, that what would look nice with what. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to use only this company. It's never like that. Whatever goes in that, in terms of the entire look and feel which is required for a project. But yes, many times, in fact most times, we are bound by giving 3 makes for projects which you have to do. So then a lot of times you have to choose out of one choice out of all. It's mainly that. So we are neutral to that, but yes, sometimes there are certain designs available in certain certain tile, manufacturers are able to give certain designs which we want to use specifically for a specific area. Then that becomes the governing factor.
Do you have any advice to ceramic tile manufacturers?
See, the concern that we face is that when you have to select the tile and you have to show, when you have to do color combinations or show to a client, the smaller pieces which earlier one of the manufacturers used to give. So, they would give a box where all these tiles were. They have now, it's not being followed anywhere. So it becomes difficult that, I feel that's a lot of wastage, because you have to get the tile to show to a client, and then you have to match with the weight, because it's tile and then whatever veneer or laminate or whatever products you want to use with that, there are always these matching sampling which is required. And then the only thing we get is a huge tile which goes waste. Second thing is that, they just like Apple, they when you come back to them after 3 months or 6 months, the tiles are not there anymore. I feel that changeover should be a little long than fast. At least it should be there for 2-3 years before they can actually change over, so that otherwise it becomes very difficult, because there's certain times, you specify a tile, and when by the time and that you have to give it in your tender, and by the time the time comes to actually put it, they're out of stock. That's one advice I would like to. Certain tiles which we feel are good for a couple of years, they need to have it, or probably manufacture them at an order. Of course, there has to be a certain quantity, but then at least get them in the process, because by the time, and then secondly, what we feel is when you do residential, so there's normally a standard size of a toilet that you have. By and large, it is either 5 to 6 feet wide and 8 feet. That's a standard you'll find in residentials. So whether we are doing these apartments, sample apartments, or whether we are actually constructing those, I've seen there's a lot of wastage which happens. And the best way to have is a, like a 800 by 400 mm tile, which fits very well with these apartments, and you avoid all the wastages, and it looks like a very neat and clean toilet. But they've all gone out of, now no one is doing that because the demand was less. But actually, these companies need to reach out to the architects and all, saying that, this is the best size, which actually we felt that was the best size they came up with. But then they, removed that from the market. So these are the challenges which I feel that, which can really be improved. Yeah.
These insight talks will acquaint you with the architect's professional approach, values that they respect and expect, their philosophy, and above all, how they look at life, other people, and this very planet. Let us join the respected professional at Inside Story. And just to add, Prism Johnson is engaged with the fraternity of designers in multiple ways, which includes publication of reputed journal Insight. You can also receive very rich and professional content by subscribing to the newsletter from insidereview.in. Thank you very much.